Next month, US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is set to make an official visit to Taiwan. And if she does, it'll be the highest level visit since 1979 and an important show of support to the island nation facing an increasing hostile and restless China. However, no stranger in speaking out in support of Beijing. Last night, former Prime Minister Paul Keating issued an extraordinary statement labelling the visit by the US Speaker as unprecedented, foolish and dangerous. Joining me now is Peta Credlin, the Director of Peta Credlin's Strategy Consultancy and former Head of ASPI. Peter, we'll get to Keating in a moment, but given this will be the most senior US official visit in 40 plus years, how significant is this Pelosi trip?
It would be significant, Peter, there's no question about that. And I think it also tells you that the US has rather underinvested in Taiwan over a number of presidencies now. And what that has achieved by default is that it's given Beijing the right to feel that it can now control who America chooses to send or who is acceptable to send to Taiwan. Frankly, with Beijing having created such a fuss about this, I think the Americans have absolutely no choice now other than to send Nancy Pelosi. What's been dismaying to me has been, yet more dithering from President Biden, who just can't seem to stop himself from giving us a stream of thought view about the internal debate inside his administration. Really what the Americans should simply have done is get Pelosi over there. And the first that anyone should really have known about it was when she's meeting with President Tsai. And at the same time, I would have the USS Theodore Roosevelt or another American aircraft carrier operating air landings and takeoffs somewhere in the vicinity of the Taiwan Straits, just to remind China that the US is not going to be told by Beijing where its senior political leadership can travel.
You are shrewd because that point about she should have been over there before it was announced she was heading, and head off comments like we've got from Paul Keating was relayed to me also today by someone in and around the national security space, so you're both on the same page with that. What was driving this this sort of rhetoric from Keating? I mean, it's no mean feat for a former Prime Minister to issue a statement. What's behind it?
Well, Paul Keating gets ever more extraordinary in his comments about the Australian intelligence community and China in particular. I guess what Paul Keating is doing is reflecting the China view that Taiwan is a rebel province and must not be treated by the rest of the world as an independent country. But Taiwan is a democracy, a successful democracy of 24 million people. And a country, moreover, that the United States, since 1979, has said it would defend in the event of an attack on Taiwan from the People's Republic of China. So I think, we've all allowed ourselves, and Australia has been culpable in this as well, Peter, in giving Beijing too much control over how we choose to engage with the Taiwanese people and the Taiwanese government. And now a little bit of that is actually being brought back. We've seen senior American political figures go. We've seen a number of senior European political figures go. It's high time an Australian minister visited Taipei. And we shouldn't concede to China somehow the right to dominate how the rest of the world engages with Taiwan.
Yeah, I know Tony Abbott went, I think it was last year or the year before, and he's determined to go back just to send these sorts of signals. I think we'll see more senior and serious Australians head that way. What's the significance of this new state-owned entity to buy up and control China's iron ore? We know how important it is to our exports. We send so much of our iron ore to China, makes us billions and billions of dollars. But this is this a power play? What's it about?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, China uses trade everywhere around the world as a vehicle to advance its political agenda. The playbook is simple, Peter. Build dependence, get another country dependent on exporting to you, and then start to make dictation to them about how they should behave towards China politically. Frankly, with iron ore, I don't think it's going to succeed. My sense is that China would dearly love to make itself less dependent on Australia for iron ore. But so far, Chinese mines in West Africa and Brazil have yet to provide the yield of iron ore that China wants for its production. And for that reason, even though it's banned wine and lobsters and coal and many other things from Australia, it's continued to buy iron ore, not because China likes us, but because they're dependent on it. So, in fact, Peter, the thing to understand here is that the country that has the whip hand on iron ore between Australia and China is actually Australia. And we should seek to make more use of that, I think, in terms of our own relationship with China, rather than always allowing ourselves to be beaten over the head by the Chinese on other export issues.
It's so true. I tell you, my dad used to say, if you've got the whip hand, use the whip. Let's go to the UK. Debate there about the leadership race. We know we're down to Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss. BBC debate overnight. Have a listen. China became a feature of the conversation.
Because you've really been trading blows about China today over Britain's relationship with China.
What we do need to do is acknowledge that China is a threat to our national security. It's a threat to our economic security.
As recently as a month ago, you were pushing for closer trade relationships with China.
Now, the barbs, for people at home who didn't watch it, their barbs against each other was you're too soft and you're not hard enough and all that sort of stuff. But Sunak called Britain's number one threat being China. He said he wants a ban on all the 30 Confucius institutes that are in Britain. Now, on that, is he right, Peter Jennings? And given we've got around 10 or so of these institutes in Australia, do we need the same hard line?
Well, first, Peter, it's great to see Conservatives trying to outdo each other in the UK on being tough on China, because they were all too soft on China just a few years ago. Look, I think Sunak is right, certainly on the Confucius centres. These have been institutions, including in our own system in Australia, that have, I think, undermined the capacity of Australian universities to speak freely and to teach freely on China around issues which Beijing finds uncomfortable to them: human rights, Tibet, Hong Kong, and so forth. And so I would dearly like to see Australia decide to push Confucius institutes, which are funded by the Chinese central government, out of the Australian campus life in order to try to give more confidence about freedom of speech in Australian universities. And certainly that should happen in the UK as well. It has been happening, interestingly enough, in Canada and the US. We've seen a rush of universities in both countries to actually move Confucius centres away from campus. And I think this is a trend that we should pick up on. And if the British are going to do it, that's yet another reason for us to be considering that here in Australia.
Peter Jennings, thank you as always. Speak to you again soon.